Hi, everyone. Father David here, coming to you dressed still in black, but a bit more casual. And I'm also coming to you from another room in the house today. And I'm here to talk about how our anxiety has just gone through the roof and it's not coming down to a place that's healthy. And hopefully, to offer some guidance in how we can just support each other to cope with the reality in which we find ourselves. And this will be part one of two videos. So if you like what we have going on in our little corner of the family of God, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to keep abreast of what we're talking about. Okay, so I've started taking a class online, which is meeting for the next several weeks. And I got the idea from this class that sharing some of the things that I'm learning might be helpful to the wider community. And this class I'm taking is through the Baptist Seminary of Kentucky, and it was recommended by a colleague who is also an Episcopal priest, and I admire and respect her very much. I know her through Twitter, and I hope that I can meet her in real life one day. So in this series of videos, I do want to keep it real and to speak plainly about where we find ourselves, but I also want to speak the truth as I have received it in love. So if you find the information helpful or not helpful, or if the delivery is a little too blunt, please just let me know, for that is the only way I know whether or not this is useful. Okay. So first of all, I think we do have to name that our collective and individual anxieties have gone through the roof since we started staying at home. Who would have thought that being in one place for most of the time would make life even more complicated than what it already is, right? And we can tell ourselves all day how necessary it is for our health and for others' health, how we can rationalize things till the cows come home. We can try and tell ourselves that this isn't so bad, but there's no mistaking the fact that there is an underlying stress on our lives that just wasn't there before. And even if we don't think our overall stress levels have increased, we definitely have traded old stresses for new ones. And we're still adjusting to this, okay? There's no mistake. It's going to take time for us to adjust, and more time than we originally thought. It's been what, almost 6 weeks now, and it still feels like it's an adjustment. And lots of times we might just think that once we get used to one way of doing things, the whole world changes again. Or another piece of news comes through to change our perspective, and it's just nothing lets up, and we're just starting over each and every day. So what can we do about it? How can we manage this? How can we resist the urge to give in to our worst impulses with regards to our health or our sanity and overall well-being? And most importantly, how can we be the people that God is calling us to be in this time? The first thing I think is to try and define what anxiety is in a more specific sense. Okay, so in general, we think of anxiety most broadly as being stressed or worried, and that's true. But if we narrow it down a bit, we might want to think of anxiety as feelings of fear or worry about a real or perceived threat. Okay, feelings of fear or worry about a real or perceived threat. So anxiety can trigger many feelings in us, like feelings of lostness or brokenness or anger. And to use a biblical descriptive, it could feel like that we are wandering aimlessly in the wilderness, whether it's like Jesus on his way to face the devil or the Israelites wandering through the wilderness on the way to Canaan. Okay, so now that we've defined anxiety and put some boundaries around what anxiety is and how it affects us, we can now begin to define our own boundaries and how we let anxiety affect us, or take a step towards that. And the first step in taking towards defining our own boundaries is guarding our emotional reserves. Okay. Anxiety might seem like it produces a lot of energy, but for all the energy that it seems like anxiety is producing within us, the overall effect is that we are burning through the energy that we have, whether that's physical energy, mental, emotional, or even spiritual energy. We're burning through this all at a much faster rate than what we normally do. Okay. So the biggest thing we could do is to guard our reserves, our emotional reserves, and watch the boundaries that we put on ourselves. Okay. Even though we're largely in one place and through technology we can access the outside world also now has access to us in ways that it hasn't before. I have had maybe 2 people come to my house since I started living here back in July, and now the entire world knows what my dining room and what my living room looks like. So that's just one example. So one way to keep our emotional reserves at a decent level is that if you feel like you just can't show up to emotionally to something, don't. Don't feel like you have to show up to everything. It will be all right. Regulate your online meetings to what is needed. Try not to fall into the habit of presenteeism and feeling like you have to stare at your screen at a meeting all day to show that you're working or being productive. Don't feel like that CCTV is on you from the office, that you got to be busy constantly doing something. It's okay when pets or the kids come and try and be a part of our day. All of this, we're still working out. So sometimes it's okay to show up to those video meetings or video calls with the camera off and use our voice only. The world will go on, the office will still go on, we'll still get our work done, and we'll be all right. So emotional burnout is something that is very real. As anxiety causes us to burn through our energy at a faster rate, it also increases the risk of us burning out our reserves to nothing. Okay. So every single one of us, every person, whether we're 9 days old or 90 years old, is precious and invaluable and needed. And in the coming months, we are going to need all of each other in ways that we might not be able to imagine yet. So it might be helpful to think of ourselves as a fire. And sometimes that fire burns brightly, and other times that fire burns steadily, and sometimes that fire burns low. But even if the fire is burned down low enough to be an ember, we can still stoke the fire with some more fuel so that it continues to burn and it continues to shine and to offer light and heat to others around us. But if that fire burns out, the fire has to be completely rebuilt on the ashes of the original. And this is something that we want to avoid at all costs if we can help it. So now that we've set some boundaries on what anxiety is and set some boundaries on ourselves, we can look at some overall concerns before getting into some specifics. So one big concern that I think we all have, whether it's when can we go back to church or school or the office, or maybe even go to the store without seeming like it's donning a suit of armor, is how long will it be before things begin to go back to the way they used to be? Another concern that I think we all share is how do we adapt to new needs, especially now? How have our economic and social needs changed since we started staying at home? And the third concern, which will be the main thrust of the second video, which I hope will either drop today or tomorrow morning, is how do we cope? And this gets to the real part. I think that if we are honest with ourselves, I believe whether we're looking at the big picture or at specifics, we might just find the answer to be, we don't know right now. And I think it's okay to let ourselves not know. And it's okay to recognize that we're worried. And it's okay to know that we're just trying to get through our days in the best and most faithful way we know how. And it's okay just to be over it all and wish it were all over. And it's okay to think that, to wish that, people just wouldn't need us for whatever reason for a couple weeks. But as for coming out of this more broadly, I believe the clearest answer that we all have is that it could be weeks or months, or we could cycle between rhythms of being outside and being at home. But the reality is, no one knows for sure until there's adequate testing and vaccines. And where our faith comes into all of this uncertainty is that we can begin to draw on our existing spiritual reserves and remind ourselves that God is in the business of walking with people through their anxiety and worry. And this is something that I've talked about in other videos on this channel or in other services I may have been a part of, whether it's in the 3 churches I serve or on Facebook Live. We don't know much right now, but we do know that one day we will come out of this for good. And while we do not know what the world will like, we do know that it will be transformed. And we do know that we are being transformed by this experience as well. And so we can offer up this time to God in our prayers and in our lives and in our work, all the while trusting, or even just trying to trust, that one day things will be better. So in short, we can have hope. So I think that's enough to digest for now. And like I said, in the next video, I do want to get into some specifics on these things and how we can support each other to keep the fires of hope alive. So please let me know if this is helpful or not, because the only way I know is with feedback. Leave a comment if you like. Hopefully you will subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to keep abreast of what we're talking about here. In the meantime, I hope you all have a good rest of the day, and I hope to hear from you soon. Take care.